Thank you. Thank you, Iowa. You know, they said this day would never come. They said our sights were set too high. They said this country was too divided, too disillusioned to ever come together around a common purpose. But on this January night, at this defining moment in history, you have done what the cynics said we couldn't do. Have done what the state of New Hampshire can do in 5 days. You have done what America can do in this new year, 2008. In lines that stretched around schools and churches, in small towns, and in big cities, you came together as Democrats, Republicans, and independents to stand up and say that we are one nation, we are one people, and our time for change has come. I think of that elderly woman who sent me a contribution the other day. An envelope that had a money order for $3.01, along with a verse of scripture tucked inside the envelope. So don't tell us change isn't possible. That woman knows change is possible. When I hear the cynical talk that blacks and whites and Latinos can't join together and work together, I'm reminded of the Latino brothers and sisters I organized with and stood with and fought with side by side for jobs and justice on the streets of Chicago. So don't tell us change can't happen. When I hear that we'll never overcome the racial divide in our politics, I think about that Republican woman who used to work for Strom Thurmond, who's now devoted to educating inner city children, and who went out into the streets of South Carolina and knocked on doors for this campaign. Don't tell me we can't change. Yes, we can. Yes, we can change. Yes, we can. Yes, we can heal this nation. Yes, we can seize our future. And as we leave this great state with a new wind at our backs, and we take this journey across this great country, a country we love, with the message we've carried from the plains of Iowa to the hills of New Hampshire, from the Nevada desert to the South Carolina coast. The same message we had when we were up and when we were down, that out of many we are one, that while we breathe we will hope, and where we are met with cynicism and doubt and fear and those who tell us that we can't, we will respond with that timeless creed that sums up the spirit of the American people in 3 simple words: yes, we can. Thank you, South Carolina. I love you.
Yeah, 66 years ago, in the dense, snow-covered forests of Western Europe, Allied forces were beating back a massive assault in what would become known as the Battle of the Bulge. And in the final days of fighting, a regiment in the 80th Division of Patton's 3rd Army came under fire. The men were traveling along a narrow trail. They were exposed and they were vulnerable. Hundreds of soldiers were cut down by the enemy. And during the firefight, a private named Lloyd Corwin tumbled 40 feet down the deep side of a ravine. And dazed and trapped, he was as good as dead. But one soldier, a friend, turned back. And with shells landing around him, amid smoke and chaos and the screams of wounded men, this soldier, this friend, scaled down the icy slope, risking his own life to bring Private Corwin to safer ground. Now, for the rest of his years, Lloyd credited this soldier, this friend, named Andy Lee, with saving his life, knowing he would never have made it out alone. It was a full 4 decades after the war when the two friends reunited in their golden years that Lloyd learned that the man who saved his life, his friend Andy, was gay. He had no idea, and he didn't much care. Lloyd knew what mattered. He knew what had kept him alive, what made it possible for him to come home and start a family and live the rest of his life. It was his friend. And Lloyd's son is with us today. And he knew that valor and sacrifice are no more limited by sexual orientation than they are by race or by gender or by religion or by creed. That what made it possible for him to survive the battlefields of Europe is the reason that we are here today. That's the reason we are here today. So this morning, I am proud to sign a law that will bring an end to Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I'm a Christian, but my father came from a Kenyan family that includes generations of Muslims. As a boy, I spent several years in Indonesia and heard the call of the azan at the break of dawn and at the fall of dusk. As a young man, I worked in Chicago communities where many found dignity and peace in their Muslim faith. Some of you know my grandfather was a cook for the British in Kenya. And though he was a respected elder in his village, his employers called him boy for much of his life. I'm the son of a black man from Kenya and a white woman from Kansas. I was raised with the help of a white grandfather who survived a depression to serve in Patton's army during World War II, and a white grandmother who worked on a bomber assembly line at Fort Leavenworth while he was overseas. I've gone to some of the best schools in America, and I've lived in one of the world's poorest nations. I am married to a black American who carries within her the blood of slaves and slave owners, an inheritance we pass on to our two precious daughters.
And it feels good. And for the rest of the day, even after we left Greenwood, even though it was still raining, even though I was still not getting big crowds anywhere, even though we hadn't gotten the endorsement of the people we were hoping for, somehow I felt a little lighter. I felt a little better. I'd see my staff. I'd say, "Are you fired up?" They'd say, "We're fired up, boss. Are you ready to go?" I'd say, "I'm ready to go." Here's my point, Virginia. That's how this thing started. It shows you what one voice can do. One voice can change a room. And if a voice can change a room, it can change a city. And if it can change a city, it can change a state. And if it can change a state, it can change a nation. And if it can change a nation, it can change the world. Virginia, your voice can change the world tomorrow. In 21 hours. In 21 hours, if you are willing to endure some rain, if you're willing to drag that person you know who's not going to vote to the polls, if you're willing to organize and volunteer in the office, if you are willing to stand with me, if you're willing to fight with me, I know your voice will matter. So I've just got one question for you, Virginia. Are you fired up? Are you ready to go? Fired up. Ready to go. Fired up. Ready to go. Fired up. Ready to go. Virginia, let's go change the world. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
Og så til vores hjørne, hvor vi ser på politikernes retorik. Denne gang skal vi en tur over Atlanten, for godt en uge siden havde præsident Barack Obama besøg af Prime Minister Thorning-Schmidt.
Well, I want to welcome Prime Minister Thorning-Schmidt to the White House and to the Oval Office.
Og som du måske hørte i vores radioprogram på P1, så brugte præsident Obama en flot boksemetafor til at forklare Danmarks betydning i verden.
That's fairly typical of the way that Danes have punched above their weight in international affairs.
Ja, det er dejligt at få ros. Vi slår hårdere end vores vægtklasse berettiger til. Men hvor meget skal vi egentlig lægge i de ord? Gør vi det ifølge Barack Obama bedre end for eksempel nordmændene? Lad os høre, for Norges statsminister Jens Stoltenberg har også været på besøg i Det Hvide Hus.
I've said this before, but I want to repeat. Norway punches above its weight.
Norge slår altså også hårdt. Men hvad så med Holland? Her er regeringschef Mark Rutte på besøg hos Obama.
We have no stronger ally than the Netherlands. They consistently punch above their weight.
Og hvad med Irland?
Ireland punches above its weight. It's a small country.
Eller Filippinerne?
The Philippines is not the largest of countries. In using a phrase from boxing, punches above its weight.
Ja, mange små lande får store rosende ord med på vejen, når de besøger præsidenten. Og måske har kopieringstasten sat sig fast på Obamas taleskrivers tastatur, for bemærkede du, hvad Obama også sagde, da han havde besøg af den hollandske regeringschef?
We have no stronger ally than the Netherlands.
Men er det ikke som om, man også har hørt nogenlunde den vending før?
We have no stronger ally than Australia.
Jo, og måske mere end en gang.
Poland is one of our closest and strongest allies. Great Britain is one of our closest, strongest allies. As I said earlier, Germany is one of our strongest allies. This state visit reflects the fact that the Republic of Korea is one of our strongest allies. Israel is one of our strongest allies. France is our oldest ally.
La France est notre plus ancien allié.
And continues to be one of our closest allies.
Italy is one of our strongest allies.
Japan is, of course, one of our strongest and closest allies.
Ja, USA har altså mange tætte og stærke allierede. Men hvad så med Prime Minister Helle Thorning-Schmidt? For vi er vel i Danmark en af USA's stærkeste og tætteste allierede. Ikke, Mr. President?
I also wanted to just say how much we appreciate the great alliance and partnership that we have with the Danish people on a whole range of international issues.
Hvad? Er vi hverken en af USA's tætteste eller stærkeste allierede? Nej, vi er bare en god allieret. Ja, nogle gange skal man lytte mere efter det, der ikke bliver sagt, end det, der bliver sagt. Husk, at hvis der er udtalelser, du gerne vil have, at vi tjekker fakta i, så kan du skrive til os fra vores hjemmeside dr.dk/detektor. Der kan du også podcaste vores radioudsendelser, eller du kan finde os på Facebook. Tak for nu, og på gensyn i næste uge.